Hey, everybody, I'm Jason Blummer. Welcome to another episode of the Businessology Show. You know our firm, Blummer CPAs, we sponsor the show. We're so excited, and we've been doing this for close to 10 years, I think. So this is really exciting. Thank you so much for joining us. And you probably know through our firm, we have a mastermind we run starting in July of 2022 called the Agency Prototype Masterclass. And we walk you through a growth prototype we use to consult with a lot of agencies all over the country. So we want to invite you to go to Blummer CPAs and check us out there and join us at the Agency Prototype Masterclass. So on to our show. I'm so pumped to have Jantsch. Everybody knows him, so I'm gonna briefly read his bio. So he's a marketing consultant, speaker. Duct tape marketing is how people have known him for so many years. Has so many books: The Referral Engine, Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, The Ultimate Marketing Engine. He's also the co-founder of Duct Tape Marketing Consultant Network. So he leads a network of a lot of other creative owners too. So I'm excited to have John on the show. So John, thanks for joining us on the Businessology Show, man.
Well, thanks for having me, Jason. I think this might be, I've been on a lot of podcasts. I don't know that a CPA has ever interviewed me before, so this should be some new territory.
There you go. Well, I won't ask you any tough financial questions, so I promise.
Good.
It's only marketing. So thankfully, we serve some of the same people. We just do a lot of the financial side of what they need. So really appreciate you being on the show. And John, you know a lot about the creative industries. Like, how long have you been doing this with creative type industries?
Yeah, so I've owned my own marketing consulting agency for coming up on 30 years, actually.
Oh, wow.
I think we're at year 29 or so.
Wow, good grief. Well, how did you get started? Because I don't know, it was probably I was in the right place at the right time kind of thing, but you grew a brand. How did you do that?
Yeah. So I actually, right out of college, went to work for an ad agency, did that for about 5 years, and kind of came to that conclusion, like a lot of people do. Any dummy can run a business. So jumped out really with no plan. I mean, I knew I could hustle work, and that's there's probably a lot of people that could relate to that. I mean, that's how a lot of businesses start. I can sell stuff. I'll figure out how to make it later.
That's right.
Did that. Took big projects, little projects, big companies, little companies, and somewhere along the way, I landed a couple small businesses as clients. And they really wanted me to do everything for them. And I was having trouble actually figuring out how to do it in the way that I'd been trained in the agency world.
Yeah.
And so I just decided, look, I really want to work with small business. If I'm going to, I've got to figure out how I can walk in and just say, look, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here are the results we hope to get. And by the way, here's what it costs. So really, was trying to solve my greatest frustration, I kind of stumbled onto what I've discovered now was solving the greatest frustration a lot of small businesses have. As a small business, it's very hard to buy marketing services, and boy, has it gotten harder.
Wow.
Because everybody's selling a piece of the puzzle. There's every new platform come along, every new thing that they say you should chase. And so the fact that somebody would walk in and say, look, we're going to do this, you're going to know what the results are, and you're going to know what it costs, was kind of music to their ears. And as I said, I really in some ways stumbled onto that, but it was a great realization that, there was nobody out there offering that market, the small business traditional market, marketing as a system. And we were just starting to tiptoe into the digital age. So it was even scarier, I think, for them. And, once I kind of stumbled onto that idea that I can make marketing a product instead of this amorphous service, I had to give it a name. I thought more of a brand. At the time, the name of my company was Jantsch Communications, like a lot of marketing folks.
Right.
And so I stumbled on duct tape marketing as a metaphor for what it's like to work and grow a small business, I think. And, fortunately, that idea really spoke to a lot of the folks that I was going after. So everything's really kind of come from that realization, I think.
Yeah, that was huge. Well, that was an iconic thing you did. Who knew it would become the brand it did at that time? But that's how a lot of great things happen. But I guess it doesn't come without a lot of work, right? So I guess you had to do a lot of work to build it from those early days to now. And now, what do you do now mainly compared to what you did then? Like, how has your life transitioned so we can all see how we can do it too?
Well, sure. So, like so many people, I did everything. That was pretty easy to describe, right? I wrote. I don't know for how many years, probably 8-9 years. I wrote a blog post every day,
Wow.
including Saturdays and Sundays. And
Wow.
so, it probably started there. That's really when blogs were just taking off, and there were a lot of people doing that. But fortunately, that really helped me build the reputation and the following. But essentially, I did everything. So fast forward to today. I mean, we don't have a big team, but we have a team of about 12 people, and we've gotten very good about who does what and specializing in certain things. We do have small businesses, so we have a traditional agency account manager structure. That we manage some small businesses, and then we have a network of about 150 small agencies and independent consultants that we train and collaborate with as a network. So really, kind of backing up, I'm finally, only took me about 28 years, actually a CEO of the company.
It takes a while.
It does take a while. My primary responsibilities are innovation and planning and strategy. And I don't mess with the numbers that much, but certainly I do set projections and goals and where we want to go. So, I finally actually wearing the title of CEO a little bit.
I know, man. It takes, man. You're just you're an overnight success, 30 years in the making, right. As they say. That's just how that works. So,
I will say the best move that I ever did from a structure standpoint is, we finally got a COO. That actually is what allowed me to become a CEO. So, I think a lot of people are coming to that realization that second in charge is the most important element, I think, maybe of a business.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's what I realized, probably 8 years ago when Julie, my partner, came on and was working with me. That's really what starts to hum and run that company is that person, and probably somebody that's made to think like that. Because I was messing some stuff up pretty bad because I didn't have processes and things like that. And she knows how to do it. She taught me how to do calendar work blocking processes, and then my role started getting into a place where I'm doing what I'm really meant to do. And it sounds like that's what, did you stumble onto a COO, or did you know to hire a COO?
We all know.
We don't do what we
that's
know,
something we
I
should
guess.
do.
Yeah.
I think the biggest realization was you have to stumble, just as you said, it is a different mindset than mine. And so you have to get that person that the whole systems, the whole last 10%, she just absolutely loves. And I like the first 10% of everything. I like making stuff, and then I get bored. So you need somebody that supplements that, but you also need somebody that you trust enough that when they tell you to get out of the way, and that that's not what we said we were going to do, that you give them that leeway, because that's probably the thing that was the hardest, and it's hard for a lot of founders. I mean, it's our baby. We want to do everything ourselves.
That's
Surely
right.
Nobody can do it as well as I can, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So you a lot of learning. Like you said, only takes a couple decades.
That's right. Yeah. But it is true when you find not only that person, it really isn't the relationship that's, hey, do what I want you to do and don't tell me what not to do. No, it's got to be that collaborative role. And then that person has to have the power to go, that's not what your vision agreed for us to do. And so now you're veering off of your own path. And it's really accountability that you need if in fact you want to succeed and grow.
That's right.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. You hang out with a lot of independent consultants. I remember the gig economy phrase coming up years ago, and it's always been a big deal, right? Do people have to be in an agency, or can they break off and be their own creative directing consultant on their own, solopreneurs? And then the pandemic came along, and it seems like people are doing that more and more. Can you just give us the state of the situation of the creative gig economy in our country or world? It would be great to know that.
I think we've gone through some phases. As you said, it's been around for a while. And part of it was the novelty of, hey, I can be untethered. I've got tools now that allow me to do work with people all over the world. So I think there was almost a novelty that, it was, you were really cool if you bought an Airstream and, you lived wherever you wanted, or you went to Costa Rica for 6 months at a time. I mean, that was so cool that we could do that. Then I think what happened a little bit was, once that phase, people got over the fact that they could do that. They found that I think they missed the collaborative environment to some degree. And so I think instead of just being hey, I'm going to make enough money so I can be a vagabond, the rest of the time, people I think started saying, freelancing has to be a business. It has to be a professional approach to freelancing. That's not just, hey, I'm available and I can make some money because I've got some smarts in this area. Right. And so I think you started seeing a professional freelancer come around. And then I think the a lot of organizations, especially marketing departments, started realizing that there were elements of what we do that are in some ways complements. Web design, SEO, content. We could, it's like computer chips. I mean, the cost of those things have been driven down so much that there's not a whole lot of value, I think, in being a freelance web designer. I mean, you've got no overhead. I mean, great. But the problem is you're competing with that person that says they'll do a WordPress site for $500. And so, it doesn't mean it'll be as good as yours. Trust me. That's right. But, to some degree, that's hard for people to quantify. So I think now what you're seeing, and I think the pandemic really sped this up, is you're seeing people that are putting together teams. All of this is, the only thing that's worth paying for today is strategy. That's nice. That's my view. Wow. I'm not saying that's a pretty polarizing view. What I'm getting at is the right strategy. You can put together and orchestrate then a team of people to implement every aspect of it. That's just my view. Our value what I'm really trying to say, Jason, is if you're not being the strategic consultant, then you're on a race to the bottom. Wow. In the work in the agency world, because there's so many of these freelance folks, freelance teams. You're seeing that. That model, I think, in some cases where an organization is bringing in a growth team to do a very specific thing, and then they're gone when they're done. So again, if you're not leading those from a strategic point of view, in many cases you're gonna be a vendor, and you're gonna be a vendor that's competing on price.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and you do get the title of vendor, and when you are a vendor, you're just somebody in a procurement system, and you're saying you're trying. If you want to make this viable and valuable, you need to become something that can't be a vendor, which is a trusted consultant that does the strategic work you need to direct you and your business, basically.
Absolutely. Man, absolutely.
That it's amazing. So it is a viable way to make money. A solopreneur can make money as long as they're the valuable strategic, or do they also have to have people they collaborate with to make something valuable?
Well, I think that's a great model because, by collaborating, you can bring in all the parts and pieces. I mean, that's really been the success of what, my agency or my, the duct tape point of view is that, a lot of businesses get burned by hiring an SEO person, a web person, a content person. Yeah. And they're not talking to each other somehow. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Yeah. And so, that idea of an orchestrated approach or an integrated approach should be very compelling. I mean, in some ways, that's offering strategy because you can't do those things in a vacuum. I mean, they have to be done strategically in order to work together. Yeah. I guess what I'm really just saying is that a freelancer can make a great living doing API work, for example, stuff that people just don't know how to do. It's technical or it seems hard. Yeah. But at some point, AI is going to replace you in doing that. And so, again, I still believe that all of those services that people are paying for a consulting firm can look at those as complementary services. When they go down in price, your value actually, and somebody's willingness to pay you as a consultant only goes up. And I know I'm wading into your territory now.
Yeah, no,
when we
good
start
stuff.
talking about profit.
Yeah.
But that's the way I really look at it. A lot of people will bemoan the idea that a lot of this stuff has just gotten so cheap. But it's because all those parts and pieces are really just that. They're just parts and pieces. They're always going to keep going down. Strategic work will never go down.
Nice.
And so the more that goes down, the more profitable you can actually be as a consultant.
Very cool. What do you think? All right, so maybe we can take a little diversion from the marketing stuff that you probably talk about all the time, and just getting your view on entrepreneurship. Is it
Sure.
Is it something people should do? Anybody should do? Some people should do? What is the value? Or would you say, hey, some people shouldn't be entrepreneurs? And even what is that phrase? What does that mean to you and for people to hear you explain entrepreneurship?
So first I would start with, yes, I think everybody should, because of, I think, the potential that it has for you, your life, your family, your goals, whatever you want to accomplish in life. This is the best path, I think, to doing it. It's actually the least risky path.
Oh, wow.
If you want to know
really?
the truth.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, I always think it's so funny. As a business owner, I go apply for a home mortgage, and I get, all kinds of extra stuff I have to give them and reports and everything because I'm theoretically a risk, whereas my employee who works for me, who has a W-2, just breezes through. Well, guess who's at risk? That person, because I ain't firing myself ever. Right?
That's a good point, right? But you can't tell your banker that, right? So
exactly. So anyway, I went down a rabbit hole there, but with that idea of risk. But having said that, I think everybody should do it. Just as you said, it's not in everybody's makeup to do it because it is the greatest self-development program you will ever put yourself in.
Oh man.
And some people aren't really ready for that type of need to grow, because it will force you to grow in many, many ways that you can't even imagine today. It's like having a child. I mean, you're never ready for it. You have no idea what it is until it happens.
That's right. Yeah. Well, more specifically, what are the pros and cons? Maybe even for you in your life. I mean, man, I'd love to dive into your life. What are the pros that you've gone through, and it might not only be professionally, personally, that you've gained through entrepreneurship, and what have been some of the cons, the things you wish you would have done better?
Yeah. So
and I know that's a lot.
That's we've got another hour's worth here.
Yeah.
The pros for me are really what, in order to do this, you have to learn so many skills. I mean, not that I'm ever going to be a great accountant, or not that I'm ever going to really want to create, financial reports, but I sure better know what they mean.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of people that will never learn that in their lifetime.
Yeah.
When I started my business, I was just a very average writer. And I've written now 7 books and
I know
thousands and thousands of blog posts, and people pay me a lot of money for my writing.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I'd never done any public speaking, but I knew that was an avenue that I needed to develop in order to get my brand out there and to build my brand. So a lot of times what happens is, in doing this, you look at the landscape and say, I have to be able to do this. I have to be good at this. And you force yourself to do it. I think anybody with enough reps, can get good at just about anything that they have, some curiosity about. And so I think that it really forces you to do that. I don't think that there's any avenue to really having the financial lifestyle that you'd like to have. Short of going to the right school, getting the job at the right corporation, having the right friends at the country club, and then next thing you know, you're CEO of a big company. But short of that, I think that the opportunities for an entrepreneur to really kind of set themselves up for generational wealth is I think that they're far easier than the other paths that, and I think the other thing too, I know a lot of people think that the dream of owning an entrepreneur business is you work whenever you want, you do whatever you want.
Right.
Those things can come, and there are definitely a lot of people that have chosen to have a more controlled balance in their life by choosing this path as well, and that's certainly available to you.
Yeah, very cool. Well, but the thing that surprised me about entrepreneurship, and I've been doing it about 20 years now, is realizing at some point that business has to become its own thing. And it was so wrapped around me and what I wanted. And at some point, the business started demanding things of me and people, and I became one of the employees, though I had the benefit of being the CEO to kind of lead that vision, but you start having to do things, like you said, public speaking, because the business needs somebody to do public speaking. You're like, well, I guess I'm going to have to do it. So entrepreneurship really stretches you, and you grow, and you find out truly what you're made of, what you're best at that you didn't even know you were good at. And I love what you said. You get in enough reps, just about anybody can be good at it. So that counters really this rock star mentality of go hire some rock stars and you'll get to kill it. That's actually not true, is it?
Well, I think it can be true. I mean, I guess it partly depends on how you define rock star. I mean, I think a lot of companies are realizing that there's certain mindsets, there's certain natural, innate curiosities that people have that they're very hard to teach. Yeah. But some of the actual technical work of many positions, you get the right person with the right mindset in there, they can learn it. So it's not a matter of looking at a resume and saying, oh, this person has 27 years experience in this, so they're perfect. Maybe those 27 years of experience will be something that they can bring to maybe shorten your learning curve in that area, or maybe it just means they're stuck in their way of how they do it. So most people, I think, have come to the conclusion that really the hiring for fit is more about a certain mindset or point of view. I mean, if you're going to hire somebody that their main job is to make sure your customers are happy, they better be a people person.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's hard to drum into somebody if they're just not naturally that.
Well, how do you hire for things? Or you're an entrepreneur, so how have you done your best hiring? What have you learned about hiring people into a creative entrepreneurial business? How do you do it well, and kind of what did you learn about messing it up?
Cliche as it is, because a lot of people have said this, hire very, very slowly. I mean, I think where people get in trouble is like, oh crap, we have a need. Let's go get somebody. Right. Yeah. And what we've really come to the conclusion is, and you see a lot of companies doing this, is that we want to think pipeline. I mean, we want to think constantly, not that we're constantly hiring, but that we're constantly building pipeline, that we're constantly talking about what we want or what we need, in people to come to work there, and then just, really take your time. I mean, be painfully slow with it, because And I mean, in our case, we even, we start people off with a trial, period, as part of the slow hiring process, because I think that's in everybody's best interest. It's painful to hire, for an organization to hire somebody and realize it's not going to work out, but it's just as painful for that person that you did that to or with as well. So that cliche of hire slow and fire fast, is when you realize you've made a mistake. Don't let it bring the organization down, because it, in a really small organization like ours, I mean, you get one person that's not into what you're trying to get, what you're trying to do. Yeah, it's really, you really can't imagine the negative impact that can have on everybody.
Oh, yeah, it's tough. And one thing we found in our business is, because we're a small business about the same size, is there's one thing it's hard to teach, which is people's, their commitment to your vision. And we've hired people in technical roles, and they're like, yeah, I'll be an accountant. But there are some people that love what we love because it's a vision they're grabbing onto also. And we found we can't hire people to do that. They just come with that built into them. Yeah. But those people can do almost anything. They're in a role. That's right. But they'll do anything for the company and for you as the owner, and you just really, you latch on to those people because they become indispensable in your business. Yeah. And I guess you have those people too, huh? That are just committed and believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. One advantage that I have, Jason, is my COO is actually one of my daughters.
Oh,
So
she's committed to the vision, right?
she really is, to the point sometimes where I have to say, let it go. But
That's
no,
that's amazing.
it's been great. I mean, she really wasn't sure what she wanted to do out of college, and so I had a role that she could fill in a very admin, entry level kind of way.
Yeah.
I think really the idea was that she was going to then figure out what she wanted to do and go out and do it. It was 12 years ago.
So now she's figured it out. So
into this role, where she eventually was doing consulting, and then she eventually got to the point where she was closing all the business, and now it's as you mentioned, now is really kind of our chief person to manage people, manage operations, manage sales, really, and my my job is hopefully to create,
right, and stay out of her way. Also,
and stay out of the way. Yeah,
it's what you're supposed to do. Well, we have you on the show. We got to talk about marketing a little bit, but man, you probably talk about marketing all the freaking time. I imagine that's like, but I just knew you were an entrepreneur, and I thought I've got to get some thoughts out of your mind about how you've done this well. One thing I learned, because so I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA, so but we have to do marketing too. I used to just think marketing was really, really just extremely creative. But I started to learn over time, it seems to be more of a process, and there are creative parts of the process. So, like, how do you describe marketing from the viewpoint of the way you teach things? Like, what is marketing?
So I start with marketing as a system, just like every other system in your business, and that point of view suggests that frankly, it is a creative endeavor. Or there are creative aspects of marketing. But in the end, 80% of businesses need 80% of the same thing in terms of the actual technical aspects of their marketing. So it's that 20% that I think you as a consultant or as a creative, person brings to help differentiate that business, to help deliver the promise of that brand. But I think where people get really stuck sometimes is when they feel like, okay, marketing is creative, so I don't really get it. I don't understand it. It's this thing that only certain people can do. There's no question a talented creative or designer can enhance a message, can enhance targeting to a certain type of customer that can help tell the story in a way that simplifies it for somebody to understand. But in the end, it really is an integrated system of moving parts that you operate in many ways like you operate your accounting system.
Yeah. Well, and that's, systems are the way you teach things, in your books. Right. And I guess were you influenced by other books? There are other books that talk a lot about systems and things like that. Yeah. And you started to go, hey, marketing is also a system, and teach it in that way.
Yeah, I was very influenced early on by reading Peter Drucker.
Yeah.
So you got to go back to about the 50s to land on the practice of management. It was considered a management book. It has some of the greatest nuggets about marketing in it for me. And then I was also pretty influenced by Michael Gerber's The E-Myth, which again I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with.
Oh yeah.
He was one of the first ones, I think, talking about systems in the context of small business. Yeah. And so that really made the light bulb come on for me, because, I was doing marketing already, but I wasn't thinking about it that way. And so I give him a lot of credit. He actually wrote the foreword. Michael wrote the foreword to the original Duct Tape Marketing.
Very cool. That's very cool. Yeah, his books are great, and through his storytelling kind of opened everybody's eyes to, how to do things in a systematic way, which is pretty amazing. So what do you think every company needs in terms of marketing? Do they all need to outsource some of it, or can you hire somebody internally to do your marketing, or do you have to be a certain size to do that? How does that work?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest thing is you can't abdicate marketing. The mistake I see some
Okay.
business owners particularly do is they go, well, I'm just going to hire this marketing person over here.
Right.
And I don't care what they really do as long as the
Right.
phone's ringing.
Right.
That I think is a recipe. Certainly it's a recipe. You're not going to grow that way necessarily. And it could be a recipe for disaster. So to me, what I always tell people is the one thing you can't truly outsource. Now you can consult, or you can get an advisor, or you can get help on. I don't think you can outsource your strategy. So having a very solid strategy that is, we might call it a marketing strategy, but it's going to get into, business strategy. For example, we work with a lot of folks that come to us in a certain stage of their business. I mean, their digital presence is kind of a wreck. And so we call those foundational businesses. So we have to fix the foundation so that we can help them go to the next level and the next level. But what that ends up getting us into is, for us, what we learned is if we were truly going to help them, our strategy had to also include operations. I mean, so we build a lot of fulfillment systems now for some of the folks that we work with. We get into areas that a lot of people wouldn't think of as marketing, but it's because our strategy is to take first off, it's to keep our clients for life, and secondly, it is to take them from where they are today to where they want to go. And so, that to me, that strategy really in some ways dictates some of the services that we offer and how we stretch and grow. I mean, we're working with company founders now, helping them get exitable as part of a marketing engagement, because it really is it is where they want to go, and so that's that part of strategy isn't something that I could outsource, but frankly, all my content, all my SEO, all my web design, for clients, I mean, I can outsource every bit of that. And so I tell a lot of business owners that, you want to be working with somebody's strategy, or at least, you are running and dictating strategy. You can certainly outsource a lot of the components. If you have a good plan, you have a good strategy, it's very easy to direct a lot of outsource and delegate a lot of the work. I do think that there is a time and place in which you should have some internal staff, and because you want to grow marketing, as I believe that marketing needs to be an asset of the business. And if you're constantly outsourcing everything, you're not growing that asset. And let's face it, there's some things, I mean, to do social media properly today, somebody's got to be there. Somebody's got to be on site. They've got to be able to take pictures of the completed projects. They have to be able to take a picture of the boss when they bring the new baby into the office for the first time, which is the stuff that people want to see. So you can't outsource some of those components, but I really tell people I think the biggest thing is that you want to be building. I don't think you have to have a digital agency inside your organization, but you want to be building marketing itself as an asset of the business as the business grows.
Okay, that makes sense. And one question I wanted to ask is what main problem do you see people do? And I guess that's it, is they do try to outsource the strategy of trying to get their vision, portrayed to a market. And that's really going to be the visionary in the company that's meant to do that, it sounds like.
I think so. And I would take it a step farther back from that. In many cases, they don't even have a strategy, or they're not working from a strategy. So they're not even.
Oh, okay.
And this is the sad thing about the world of digital marketing today, is there's a whole lot of people willing to sell them the tactic of the week, as their
But there's
approach.
no strategy.
But there's no strategy. Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like if somebody's selling you something, they need to be selling a thing they're going to pitch to the world, and there has to be something good enough the world needs to purchase, and that strategy. But it's a good point you made that actually some people don't even have a strategy, and that is the problem.
Most don't.
Okay, you'd say most businesses don't even have a strategy. Well, if somebody said, okay, maybe I'm one of those, then what is a strategy? Do you tell them, well, it's 6 points, or what is a strategy that they're learning from you they don't have?
So the very first thing, anybody who's been in business for any amount of time, will go to work on figuring out who their most profitable customers are that they're providing the most value for, probably having a great experience. So they're also referring them. It's typically about the top 20% of most businesses. We want to figure out everything we can about them. We will typically, once we discover who they are, we will typically start changing the messaging towards attracting more of them. Because that is a group that, you know this better than anyone, Jason. I mean, that is a group that probably represents 60, 70, 80% of the profit for an organization, that top 20%. And yet we underestimate how much it costs us to serve that bottom 20 or that bottom 30%. Most cases are probably losing money or breaking even at best, but the opportunity loss is what's really killing a lot of businesses. So going after those businesses that aren't asking for a price, a discount, that truly are willing to pay a much higher fee for services because they're the right fit, because they understand the problem that you solve. So that's number one. Number two, we typically go to work on refining a message. So many businesses we work with, if I'm a plumbing company, the core message right above the fold of my website says, "Excellent plumbers since 1954." I mean, it's like, well, I know you're a plumbing company.
Right. You're probably good at it, I imagine. Right.
That's why we came here. But what problem, can you promise to solve for me? And example I love to use all the time is we had a tree service and it was exactly that. It said, locally owned, since that was the headline. Right. We interviewed their customers. We looked at their Google reviews and every single one of them said, yeah, but they show up when they say they're going to, and they clean up the job site. Come on. And that's the thing that their best clients aren't getting from the other people that serve them. And so, that's the kind of message that we'll lean into then and say, okay, how can we make that the strategy for the business? Communicating that, sure, we'll put it above the fold. We'll put it on business cards and invoices. But can we actually create an on-time guarantee, or it's X off? Can we actually show our customers the 37-point checklist about how we clean up the job site, so that we don't just make that a phrase or a nice slogan? It's a promise that we actually then demonstrate that we deliver on. It becomes strategy for the business.
Very cool. I love that. Well, can we briefly talk about your book? I know before we got on the air, you're like, man, I talk about my books all the time. I'd love to talk about something, but we got to hit, the ultimate marketing engine, kind of just walk us through what are you trying to tackle and some of the messages you're trying to solve in that book.
Yeah. So my first book, Duct Tape Marketing, probably did get into a lot more tactics of creating a marketing system, what you needed to do. As I said, I wrote that when we were still, bringing people kicking and screaming on the web. But the ultimate marketing engine is, I guess, an evolution, 20 years later or 15 years later of my thinking on marketing. It is essentially a strategy book. It talks about this, how to figure out who that top 20% is, how to create a message, a problem-solving message. I certainly do get into what you need out of a website and content and, those kinds of things that generate leads. But I spend a great deal of time on unpacking the customer journey, the end-to-end customer journey, something I call the marketing hourglass. And essentially what that does is that, a lot of people think in terms of creating demand to get a lead or to get a purchase, and that's kind of where marketing ends. But for me, in our end-to-end journey, in some ways, once somebody says yes or becomes a customer, that's where the magic really begins. Because where you become infinitely more profitable as a business is when you retain those customers, when you sell them again, when you take some percentage of them and you sell them 10 or 100 times more, and they're so thrilled with the value they're getting even at that 10 and 100 times that they're your evangelists out there talking about your organization. So, companies that understand that framework, have a great, I think, advantage because they start intentionally building processes and campaigns and touch points into creating that great experience, creating that understanding of how they can grow with and scale with their customers, as opposed to going out and constantly finding new ones.
Very cool. So that sounds like a great book. One other thing before we wrap up is another book you wrote is really meditations for entrepreneurs. And I was reading your stuff and I'm like, wait, he has a 365-day meditations book for entrepreneurs. And I started reading, people on the Amazon reviews, and they're like, this book is incredible. And why did you write that? You said it was kind of a personal project on the side, but what made you want to care for entrepreneurs with a book like that?
Well, I think I alluded to earlier, I think being an entrepreneur is one of the greatest personal development projects that you can set your life on. And so, that was part of it is, as I've grown and done this over the years, I was observing how I was growing and changing, how I needed to reflect and how I got prepared and kept myself resilient and in the game over the years. And so I really, in a lot of ways, wrote this as a reflection of that path, I guess, of development that I've taken. I borrowed from the fact that journaling and meditation and just even daily exercise or daily routines or whatever, or a lot of entrepreneurs have realized the value of those. So this book kind of fits into that. It was also a personal sort of passion project for me to get to write about those topics and those feelings. I mean, there's definitely some personal things in that book for me that it gave me a 2 or 3 year break really from writing about marketing, to tell you the truth. And I think in some ways I needed that at that point in my career too. Yeah.
Well, you've been writing about marketing for a long time and you're like, I need a break from that. So, well, cool. Right. Well, that's John, right. Thanks for being on the show. And as we close out, people need to know how to find you. And maybe if you have any kind of free things they can visit and, get from you, what are some of those things?
Well, of course I have free things, Jason. I'm a marketer.
I know.
So, we've been talking a lot about marketing strategy, and there are some assessments out there that are maybe geared more towards marketing tactics. So I created an assessment that I think will help you analyze where you are in my thinking about marketing strategy. And then you can find it just at marketingassessment.co, not the com,
right?
Marketingassessment.co. So that's the first one, totally free. You'll love the report that you get because it'll give you all kinds of advice based on your answers. But if you just want to see what I've been doing, check out my books, for last couple decades or so. You can find those all at ducttapemarketing.com, and that's DUCTTAPE marketing.com.
Very cool. John Jantsch, thanks for being with us on the Businessology Show. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Jason. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care. We'll see you. Bye-bye.